Has anyone here started out with this really clear picture of how something in your life's going to go? Like the job interview you're going to nail, or the exam you're going to ace, or the TEDx talk you're going to do in front of a really big live audience on a fabulous stage. And then it doesn't work out the way you expected at all, and you're left feeling derailed and second-guessing yourself. I had one of these moments when I first saw a career counsellor. I had just finished my degree in biochemistry, and I walked in expecting this guy to tell me how to turn my degree into something that was going to be a good job. But the first thing he asked me was what I would do if I could do it for free. I immediately thought I'd be an actor. I'd always won the prize for drama through high school and been the lead in the musical. Even during my degree, I'd continued doing community theatre. Acting was what I did when I did it for free. When I told him this, he said, "Right, well, you should be an actor." And I was like, sure, because being an actor is so easy. That's why so many people do it. He then asked me a question. If you don't try doing acting, is it something that you're going to regret not doing? I didn't grow up in the kind of family where we had conversations about what we wanted to be when we grew up. My dad was violent and unpredictable as a result of the PTSD he developed as a veteran of the Vietnam War. After he and Mum got divorced, my mum took to drinking day and night. They didn't go to university, they hadn't finished high school, and there was no expectation that any of the kids would go on to university. We lived in survival mode, one day at a time. I'd chosen science because it seemed safe and practical. But this career counsellor seemed to be pointing out a major flaw in my planning. It hadn't occurred to me that I should try doing something that I actually wanted to do. I tried to dismiss it because I'd just done a science degree and I didn't want to waste it. But this idea of not living with regret had really taken hold. I didn't know it at the time, but I was at the beginning of one of the first Plan B journeys I would choose for myself. So what is Plan B? Plan B is what happens when things don't work out the way you expect. Sometimes Plan B is something that you choose for yourself, but a lot of times Plan B is something that is chosen for you. When I first came home that day in primary school and found Mum drunk and crying on the couch, that was a definite Plan B moment. I hoped it was going to be a momentary blip because I had a really good Plan A way life. I'd imagined our lives were going to go once Dad left. It went like this. There would be some sort of TV montage moment where Mum would go out and get a new wardrobe, get a job, and then she'd discover all of these hidden strengths she didn't know she had. But as the weeks turned into months and then ticked over into years, and we scraped by on the sole parent's pension, I realised that the Plan A life I had imagined wasn't going to happen. We're often faced with these moments when something completely outside of our control comes along and tips the carefully laid plans we have for our lives on their heads. For me, it was my mum's sudden descent into alcoholism. For you, it might be the death of someone you love, or finding out someone you thought you could trust is a liar. Or it could be a pandemic that comes along and sweeps the globe in the biggest collective Plan B moment most of us have ever experienced. So I need to share a little secret. I'm a bit of a control freak. I don't like Plan Bs being chosen for me, but after having lived through so many of them, I've come to accept them as a part of life. What I want to share with you today is how to tap into the power of Plan Bs, to build your capacity to adapt to whatever life throws at you. The process of tapping into the power of the Plan B has 7 steps. Stay with me, 7. Okay, so the first step is accept what is. Accepting what is often the most difficult part. It means challenging the stories we're telling ourselves about something and getting really honest. I'm not going to lie. Sometimes accepting what is makes you curl up on the floor and cry. And that's okay. Sometimes crying is exactly what's needed. But accepting what is a two-part process. First, but the second part we've got to get to is, this doesn't mean we have to like the reality we see. And it certainly doesn't mean we have to stay stuck or put up with a situation we aren't happy with. But accepting what is, instead of pretending things are how we wish they could be, gives us a solid ground of truth so we can work with what we've got to figure out how we might get to where we want to go. When I decided to pursue acting instead of science, I had a plan A way I wanted that to go. It involved going to the National Institute of Dramatic Arts, being discovered, becoming famous, and winning an Academy Award. But that's not the way it went. When I auditioned and wasn't offered a place in drama school, I was crushed. It made me completely doubt myself. But this idea of not living with regret had really taken hold. So I began my Plan B journey. I started with step 1, accepting what was. I didn't get into the drama school I wanted. And then I moved on to step 2, focus on what is in your control. Focusing on what was in my control meant saying, yes, I did not get into the drama school I wanted, but there are other acting classes I can take. So I took one. And in that class, I asked a lot of questions, but mostly I asked, how do I be an actor? From there, I moved on to step 3, breaking down my goal into small, achievable tasks. And then step 4, they're often tied together, take action. So that meant I got a headshot done. I subscribed to a magazine that had auditions in it. I told everyone I knew I wanted to get into acting. My first paid job was for an in-house corporate video for the staff at L'Oreal. It was around Christmas time, and for some reason they had me dress up in a skimpy Santa's helper costume and speak in a French accent. Don't ask, because the concept wasn't strong. But from there I earned $200 and I got an actor's equity card, which was very important because from that I could then go on and get an agent. Each time I auditioned through that agent and took the risk of putting myself out there, not knowing if I was going to be successful, I was moving on to the 5th step in embracing a plan B, which is building a tolerance for uncertainty. Though I started to win some roles, there were a lot I didn't get, which helped me with step 6 in embracing a plan B, getting used to failure. Learning how to fail is hard, but one of the ways that has helped me with this is by redefining what success and failure means by focusing only on the parts of the process over which I have control. So I wasn't in control of whether or not I got cast in a role, but I was in control of whether or not I turned up on time, knowing all my lines, and treated every opportunity as a chance to learn. This approach in Plan B thinking really helps with step 7, not taking it personally if things don't work out the way you hoped they would. I never did win an Academy Award, but I got to perform in commercials, in television, in films and plays. I had so much fun doing it. I learned skills that I've used for the rest of my life. And I'm so glad that I didn't live a life where I didn't pursue my dream. The story we tell ourselves about why something didn't work out the way we hoped they would can be the things most likely to stop us from dusting ourselves off and keeping on going. Instead of seeing failure as something that's happening to you and you alone, it's far more helpful to think of failure as something that happens to everybody who has ever succeeded at anything. Big goals don't always happen quickly. They often involve a lot of false starts and unexpected turns. Sometimes our goals change along the way. What Plan Bs give us is a way of accepting that no matter what these goals are, attaining them is often going to be harder than we wish they would be. But the quicker we can accept what is, rather than feeling frustrated about how things should be, the sooner we can direct our attention to dealing with the things that are blocking our way. It might seem counterintuitive, but when we deliberately cultivate an attitude of expecting things to go wrong, we can stop telling our stories that something not working out is a sign from the universe that we should give up. Instead, we can just simply see it as, okay, so it wasn't that way. Which way now? Embracing the power of the plan B means realizing that though it hurts to fail, there are worse things that can happen. Things like not even trying, giving up on your goals, or not even daring to pursue your dreams in the first place because you're scared of looking stupid. I took Kung Fu classes for a while, and one of the techniques we learned in those classes was something called arm hardening. It's this process where you deliberately smack your forearms against the forearms of other people in your class so that you might harden your arms, and also so that when you're in a fight, you're not going to fall over in shock the first time you get hit. Learning to take blows is an important part of learning how to fight, but it's also an important part of learning how to live, because we don't have to do Kung Fu to have experienced blows. Being hurt or let down by someone, being dismissed or ignored, being judged or rejected, it hurts. It's natural for us to want to do what we can to avoid that sort of pain and suffering. And a lot of the times the way we do that is by making ourselves small and trying to avoid failure and risk and uncertainty and not make any mistakes. But unfortunately, this approach often doesn't produce the results we want because so much of our life is outside of our control. Developing a tolerance for failure and uncertainty is a form of life arm hardening. But instead of smacking our forearms against someone else, we're smacking ourselves into situations that are a bit scary. We willingly expose ourselves to the stress and shock of this so we can learn to brace against the experience. And that way we can hold steady inside ourselves the next time the world around us changes. So how do we do this? How do we do life arm hardening? I suggest starting small. Instead of going to the restaurant that you always go to, choose somewhere a bit different and you don't know whether it's any good. Sign up for a class that puts you outside of your comfort zone. Build up to something a bit bigger. Put a creative project out into the world, even though you're scared that somebody's going to say something bad about it. Raise your hand to be the one doing the presentation, even though doing public speaking scares you. The power of the Plan B approach lies in the fact that by its very nature, you're not following the well-worn path of another. Plan B lets you find your own way and learn that when something doesn't work out, it doesn't mean that it's time to give up. It just means it's time to switch to Plan B. So what is Plan B again? How do we do it? What are the steps? Number 1, accept what is. Number 2, focus on what is in your control. Number 3, break down your goal into small, achievable tasks. Number 4, take action. Number 5, build a tolerance for uncertainty. Number 6, get used to failure. Number 7, don't take it personally if things don't work out the way that you'd hoped they would. One of the most famous inventors in the world, Thomas Edison, made hundreds of unsuccessful attempts at inventing the light bulb before he finally ended up with a design that worked. Of his approach, he said, "I've not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work." And that is the power of Plan B thinking. Thank you.